Jenna, it is great to have you here on Kristi K is After Hours. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to talk. You have so many things that I need to know about real estate, about South Florida, about sort of selling these days, what the markets are like. So I am so curious. Let's get going and dive right in.
Awesome.
First of all, okay, I am so curious about your world because you deal with everyone from first-time buyers to those who are really millionaires looking for their second and third homes. So tell us how you work so well with all these diverse clients.
I definitely work with a diverse clientele and I absolutely love it. Everybody is also, in my eyes, everybody's treated exactly the same, whether you're just getting into the home buying market or whether this might be your sixth, seventh, eighth purchase. It's an emotional experience, the whole home buying process. So there can be a lot of emotions that are just happening across the board from all different buyers. And it's so fun too to meet people from all different walks of life and just being part of this chapter that's so huge. Buying a home, it's one of the biggest financial purchases that so many people make in their lifetime. So I'm always so honored when somebody trusts me to help them through the buying process. I, really treat it as being such a privilege, and I've had some incredible experiences being able to help people purchase homes.
I mean, you are such a big part of the decision making and picking the right realtor and that person who really sort of intuitively understands the goal of the buyer. So I'm curious to know too, Jenna, what is it that savvy buyers understand that maybe some of the rest of us don't in terms of maybe the first time buyers? What does someone who's been in the market a while or maybe understands the markets need to know?
So a lot of savvy buyers, they view real estate, what we're seeing, especially in this market too, that can be a little volatile, just in terms of what's happening across the world, there can be volatility. So you definitely have these savvy buyers that view real estate as a place to park their money. So they're looking for something that, of course, is going to hold its value. It's going to increase in value over time. They're looking at kind of safe haven locations across the country, and they're viewing real estate a little bit differently. This isn't necessarily going to be somewhere that they're going to be living primarily. This might be their second, their third, their fourth home. It's more of an investment for them versus your first time home buyers. This is where they're going to be living. This is a place they're going to be making memories with their family. They're paying more attention maybe to the home, how close it is to certain schools. They're paying more attention to the community. Obviously, they want their home to go up in value, but they're not necessarily thinking about it the same way that an investor is viewing the home.
So, Jenna, before we go any further, tell us what the markets are like today as we are here tonight talking about real estate and purchasing. What are the markets doing?
So this has been a very challenging housing market these past few years, really. There are a lot of buyers that just feel very frustrated with this housing market, specifically first-time home buyers. They're priced out. We saw this past year that the median age of the first-time home buyer had actually jumped to 40 years of age. So you have this entire generation that feels like they're completely priced out of home ownership. And what we're really seeing in the housing market too is it's very bifurcated. So I'm based in Florida, and what's happening in Florida, it's a completely different story than what you have happening in the Northeast. So in Florida, we have a lot of inventory, and in the Northeast, you have a real lack of inventory. So what we've started seeing in the market is that these states that have really a surplus of inventory, you're actually seeing buyers gain the upper hand a little bit. They're not under the pressure that they used to be under. They can take their time. They can really be more choosy when it comes to picking a home. And then, of course, in the Northeast, these areas where there's this real lack of inventory, you're seeing that buyers are still having to compete against other buyers. They might be paying over the asking price. They're not able to be as selective. They're not able to take their time as much because there's just this real shortage of inventory. So it's hard to give a blanket statement for the national housing market. It really just depends on where you look. But overall, it's still a challenging housing market, but there are buyers out there that have been able to navigate it and have been able to find some amazing homes in this environment.
Hmm. So you're saying too that a lot of people have been renting into their 40s.
They have. It's just a different environment now. It's frustrating for a lot of the Gen Zers out there because they would love to get into the housing market, even millennials, because again, it's people that might not be buying a home until their early 40s. So it's just a different environment than it used to be than when baby boomers were purchasing homes. Prices are so much higher. And then on top of higher home prices, you have rising insurance costs, you have rising taxes, you have elevated rates. So that's what's really kept a lot of people out of the housing market. You also have rising maintenance costs. So for many potential buyers out there, it just doesn't make sense for them to buy. They're biting off more than they can chew. It makes more sense for them to rent, to save money, and maybe revisit buying a home down the line. I always tell buyers that you really have to be creative. You have to be flexible in this environment because it's not the same environment that we used to be looking at in the past.
For sure, for sure. So I want to talk about the emotional side of real estate and why people buy, kind of like what makes them tick. What do you see in terms of people buying? Are they buying primarily for comfort, for security, for status, when people are moving into certain neighborhoods? Do you see a lot of that? Or what do you see primarily as those top couple of reasons that people buy and where they buy?
Well, for so long, homeownership, it's really been this cornerstone of generational wealth building. So I do believe that people buy for that reason. And of course, people buy to have stability. They buy if they know they're going to be staying in a place for a long amount of time, then they purchase so that they can have that stability. They can have that feeling of belonging, that feeling of comfort. And it's just such a personal thing. So there's so many different reasons as to why people buy. So something that I see, I'm based in the Florida Keys. So the Florida Keys, it's a chain of islands. So I actually deal with a lot of buyers who have had this dream their whole life of living on an island. So they're making a purchase in the Florida Keys. This is a dream come true for them to be able to live on an island, be able to experience more of a laid back lifestyle. They get to spend all their time outdoors. So they're not just buying a home, they're really buying into this whole lifestyle. And that's pretty cool when you get to work with some buyers down here in the Keys that have dreamt about this their whole life. And I get to be part of that process and get to see this dream come true for them.
Oh, it has to be super rewarding for you to be in that mode of being able to help somebody with that probably the biggest purchase of their lives in many cases. So
Absolutely.
when you're looking at people on their list of things that they're sort of prioritizing when they buy a luxury home, such as those on the islands and that type of thing, what would you say is at the top of the list? And I'm also curious to know, has that changed? Are people still looking for the same thing? Like you said, kind of their little slice of heaven, that white picket fence, that little, property that they had in the corner, or what is it now that people are primarily looking for that you are seeing? And
So,
what changes?
yeah, It can vary, of course, based on what type of home they're buying. So your luxury buyer, of course, they're buying into the location. They're buying into privacy. That's what they want. They want to have kind of an exclusive neighborhood that they're purchasing in. They want to have, depending on what price scale we're at, they might want to have all the bells and whistles that can come with the home purchase. They might want wellness amenities. But I would say overall, you're looking at the location, you're looking at privacy. A lot of people are working from home. Of course, we're not seeing as many people working from home. Some have been called back to the office, but people want to have an office in their home. They want to have space for that. People love outdoor living too. That's a big thing, especially if you're in a place like I am in the Keys where you spend a lot of time outdoor. People want to be able to have a home that gives them the flexibility to be able to spend a lot of their time outdoors, eat their meals outside, and just really enjoy every bit of the community that they've bought in.
Okay, I'm moving south. That's it. You have to talk
Yes.
to me. We're talking off camera. So listen, okay, from your perspective, what is the secret to selling $1 million homes these days? Is there a sort of is it catching people at the right time? Is it finding those clients and potential clients that you just caught them at the right moment where they're like, okay, we're ready?
Yes, I mean, that of course timing can of course be a big thing. I don't suggest that people time the market. I would say that, there's always a demand out there for these luxury homes. And right now there can be a lack of luxury homes in a lot of markets. So that, of course, when one comes on the market, then there might be a lot of buyers that are ready to bite the moment that it comes on the market. It all comes down to supply and demand.
Mm-hmm. Right, for sure, especially at this time. So do you sell a lot of homes to people and potential buyers who you think are like, okay, I'm buying for status. I want to be in that particular neighborhood, but really can't necessarily afford to do so. And when that happens, do you have to kind of talk them out of it and be like, okay, I think we're like not in the right spot for you?
Well, it's such a personal decision, but with just the rising cost of everything, I think I mentioned that, insurance costs are up, taxes are up, your maintenance costs are up. Really, Americans have been dealing with this elevated cost of living. So they need to understand that it's not just the price tag. If they're taking out a mortgage too, it's not just the rate, it's everything that also is going to come along with that. And you've really got to be in a position where you have this security net where if things break down the line, you're in a financially comfortable position where you can cover it. So that's a very personal decision as to if the buyer can actually afford it or not, but they really have to think long term, and you really have to make sure you have that financial cushion, that you're ready for anything that can come your way, especially if you're on the water. Again, I sell a lot of waterfront homes, so you've got to be ready for that. There's a lot of wear and tear that can sometimes come with a home on the water. You've really got to be able to maintain it, put money into it. So people, they need to have that financial cushion.
Ah, for sure. That makes all kinds of sense. Okay, so what's the craziest deal you've ever done, or like the most luxurious home you've ever sold?
So, geez, it's hard to even name just one deal. I mean, all of my deals have been an experience. I had this, I guess I could give you this story. One time I had this buyer, and this was during the pandemic buying time when people had FOMO. They didn't want to miss out on anything. I had this buyer that bought around I think it was a $9 million property, and he bought it sight unseen. So that was pretty wild. That's a pretty large purchase to be doing.
Yes.
Sight unseen.
Yeah, no kidding. That tells you what FOMO did to all of us during COVID.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I can
And you
imagine.
don't, speaking of FOMO, that is something in this housing market that's really changed. So people don't have this FOMO anymore. In fact, it's really the opposite. You see buyers, they have this fear of overpaying versus this fear of missing out. So there's definitely been a shift in buyers' attitude that we've really seen this year and also last year as well.
Really interesting. Yeah, it is kind of a psychological game when you really come right down to it, isn't it?
It really is.
Okay, so what's the best part of your job?
The best part of my job, it's just the people that I get to meet. I've been able to meet people from all over the world, just so many interesting people. And again, being on an island, this island attracts
Rub it in.
it attracts some unique buyers, and it's just so cool to meet people from all over, and again to be involved in this experience with them that is very emotional. It's hard at the end of the day too. Like, I love it when we come to the closing table, they get their set of keys. There's nothing better than that. But you go from talking to this person all the time to, all right, we're there, we made it to the finish line. Like, I always stay close friends with a lot of my buyers because you've just gone through this emotional roller coaster together. And, even though the closings happened, they have their set of keys, they have their new home, I still stay involved, even after the closing.
Well, you're so right about that too. You really develop that personal connection, and they know everything, you know everything about them as the potential buyers. You're finding out their likes, their goals, their relationship, if it's a couple kind of a thing, and who likes what. So you are such an important part of their lives. So now, having said that, what is the worst part of your job? Are you crazy when somebody looks at a house 5 times and then they say, never mind?
Well, that's okay. Like, man, I have buyers that will look at 100 homes before they make a decision. And it's okay. This is a very big purchase. As we said, this is in many cases one of the biggest purchases that a buyer is going to be making in their lifetime. I would say it's always hard when you have a deal fall apart. There's so many emotions that are involved, but sometimes you can have the buyer and seller, they just don't agree on things. Maybe during the inspection period, there might be some repairs that need to be done, and the seller doesn't want to make those repairs, and so they don't want to meet the buyer in the middle. So I think that's always hard when you have deals that fall apart. But so often I tell my buyers, look, everything happens for a reason. So just because this one deal fell apart, there might be something that's even better and that's more right for that particular buyer.
So, such a good perspective. I do feel like realtors are so patient because you really are playing the long game.
Yes, we are playing the long game. This is not a short game. And as I said, it's not just about getting to the finish line. It's also helping even after the finish line, being there for your client, because they're in a new town, they're in a new community. They need to be connected with people. Whether it's contractors, whether it's helping them with insurance, whether it's helping them know which restaurants to go to, you're involved far after the transaction, far beyond when the transaction is complete.
It's true. And there's so many facets to your job that I never really thought about until we really had this conversation. Like, you're doing so many different things. You're really helping them infiltrate into a new community, as you said, a new life and a lifestyle that maybe they didn't have before if they're kind of stepping up into a new community.
Right, absolutely. And they're looking towards us as being the experts in this community. So they need to know where to go, what to do. They need to be learning about this community. And of course, it will take time. They can eventually learn about it, but they're leaning on us to help guide them and answer any questions that they have even after they've purchased the home.
Okay, so it's last call. I have one thing I want to ask you about. One tip that you can leave our buyers with or potential buyers with that maybe they miss oftentimes.
I feel like so many buyers especially in this challenging market, they try to time the market. And my advice to buyers is to not time the market. I think that so often people end up missing out on opportunities because they're trying to wait for, well, when the price gets better or when interest rates go down. And you really just have to evaluate your personal situation. You have to do what feels right to you. So I would just suggest to buyers, sometimes you have to ignore the noise that you might hear about what's going on nationally and just really focus on your own personal situation. Stay flexible too, and stay creative in this environment. That's really key. And I hope that buyers can take that advice.
That's perfect advice. Okay, so Jenna, how can our viewers and listeners find you online?
So they can find me on my website, they can find me on social media, and LinkedIn as well. I try to stay active on those platforms.
What is your website?
So my website is jennastauffer.com.
Got it. Great.
And then my Instagram is Jenna M. Stauffer. And then YouTube, you can find me. It's just under Jenna Stauffer, LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Well, we have been thrilled to have you here. Such great information, so many tips, and so many things that we didn't know about the luxury market and South Florida, as well as what's happening in real estate in terms of sort of your analysis of the entire industry. So thank you, Jenna, for being with us on Kristi K is After Hours tonight.
Thank you so much, Kristi. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you to our underwriter, KeyBank. We love you. If you'd like to be a guest on Kristi K is After Hours or have a topic and an expert you'd like to book, reach out to me via email or on LinkedIn at Kristi K. Hoffman or on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Kristi K Media.